Halt! Yeah!
Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after, the younger son got together all that he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything there, there was a great severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs, and he longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating. But no one gave him anything." Luke 15, starting in verse 11 through 16. Hello, everybody. My name is Mark, and I'm the pastor here at Lux Digital Church, and I just want to let you know I'm so thankful and glad that you're here with us tonight, especially if you're here for the first time. If you're here for the first time, you are our honored guest. And I want to encourage you, whenever you feel comfortable, drop a follow here on the stream or say hello in the chat. We just want to welcome you and tell you that we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're part of our community. Hey, Zeph, it's good to see you. We're so happy to have every single one of you here who is here. Thank you for showing up tonight. You're a person. You're not just a screen name. You're not just a profile picture. You're a person with a story, with a spiritual narrative. And I want you to know that no matter where you are on that spiritual journey, whether you are where we are with Jesus or you're not, it matters not to us. We just want you to know that you matter to us, that we care about you, and that we are glad that you are here. And we want to invite you to come back next week for our first birthday. But before I tell you about that, I want to give a special thank you to Doc, who just did prayer for us here at Lux. Guys, I have another announcement to make that we haven't announced, but I wanted the whole church to know it. So I wanted to make sure we recorded it for our on-demand family that listens in later over VOD podcasts and things, and on YouTube. Doc has become our first management team member here at Lux that actually came through our church. And you may not understand what that means and what that looks like. Our church's governmental system, we have an external board who governs our church. They are my boss. They oversee the things that happen here. You won't know many of them, but if you remember Pastor Chris, who spoke here not all that long ago, Pastor Chris was one of those individuals. He's on the management team along with a handful of others. And just this month, Doc took a position on the management team here at Lux Digital Church. I just want to say thank you to Doc. And I just want to, I want to honor that which, should be honored in our church family. And so thank you, Doc. And next week, guys, we're going to have someone special and new who's going to be leading prayer for us. And they're joining the team next week, which we're really excited about. So very excited about that. Doc, thank you so much for being willing to serve and step onto that team. We do really appreciate you. And we really appreciate every person who's on our dream team. Guys, they do such an amazing job. If you've never had a chance to go and join our dream team, just go over to our website and go to join the team, and you can just jump on over at luxdigitalchurch.com. We'd love to have you join the team, get to know you a little bit, and have you jump in with us and help serving at any place all across Lux. Now, next week, guys, is the first birthday party for Lux Digital Church, which means we're turning 1 next week. Next week is going to be a big party, and we want you to come out and join us, and we would love for you to invite somebody and bring them with you. Say, hey, we're going to be throwing a party. It's going to be mostly a live stream. Come and chill with us. It's going to be a fun time. Come and hang out with us. We hope you'll invite someone to come with you to come and celebrate with us. And we hope if you're listening on demand today that you'll make it a point to come next week, because we really want to get all of our family together. So if there was a week that you were going to come and celebrate with us and you've never jumped on Twitch before, and maybe you're listening over YouTube right now, I just want to encourage you, come next week. Make it a point next week at 8:30 p.m. EST at twitch.tv/LuxDigitalChurch. Come and hang out with us. Clear your schedule. Come and celebrate 1 year of ministry in the digital church with us. We would love to have you with us. Thank you so much, guys, if you're here with us and joining us. Listen, right now we're wrapping up a collection of talks, a three-piece collection of talks. Last week, Pastor Josh from Lightning Church came, and it was shocking. I know I shouldn't make the puns, but I did. Right? I know that Templar 10 loves the puns. So, anyway, Pastor Josh, yes, Pastor. I've known Josh. We rode the same school bus, so I've known him for a really long time. It was an honor and a privilege to have him come and share with us last week in part 2 of the 1 is Greater Than 99 series when he shared about the parable of the lost sheep. And tonight, we read the first piece of the parable of the prodigal son, or the parable of the lost son. Yes, pun intended, Star Fox. Absolutely. The pun was 100% intended, and it always will be. And so we want to talk a little bit about that tonight, but before we dive in, I do want to go to the one point that we go back to throughout the entire collection of this series, sort of the one thing that all of the collection revolves around, and it's this: one matters to us because one matters to Jesus. One matters to us because one matters to Jesus. In other words, our unapologetic focus on the one, the person who's far from God, the person who doesn't know Jesus, the person who's walked from the faith. Our unapologetic focus on the one, guys, is not just because we think it's a good strategy or because we think, oh, maybe it'll get people to come to our live stream or to help us grow. I could really care less about all of that. The unapologetic focus on the one is because that is what Jesus focused on. He searched and sought after the one. And tonight, we're going to see what is maybe one of the most powerful stories about the power of the one returning home in the story of the prodigal son. We're going to break it down here in just a couple of minutes. But before we dive in there, I just want to say, when we started Lux with the one in mind. And if you have a one, I know that we've talked about this before. If you have a one, if you have that one person that you're seeking, that you're trying to bring to Jesus, that you're praying for on a regular basis, would you put a 5 in chat? That's raising your hand for us. If you put a 5 in chat, you have 5 fingers, right? If you have 4 fingers on your right hand, you could put a 4 in chat. That's fine. A 5 in chat. If you have a 1, if you have someone that you're regularly praying for, put a 5 in chat, because I just want to see, I see those names. I see Sam I Am and Flat Cap and Josh and Holden and Shock and Holden again, and Faye and Zeph and Baggy and David and Janny and JT. So many of us, guys. If you have a 1, put the 5 in chat, because there's so many of us. Millie Mom, welcome to chat. You're a first-time guest with us here tonight. We're so glad to have you with us. Welcome in. It's so good to have you. My name is Mark. I hope that you're doing well. Glad to have you here with us. If you have a 1, the person that you're focused on, the person that you're praying for, the person that you want to see come to know Jesus, listen, it's important. Because when we started Lux, we started with the one in mind. Everything that we did was crafted around the one. I had spent years hanging out and lurking in different streams. I'm Shock's mom. Oh, that's awesome, Shock's mom. It's good to have you with us. That's really awesome. Shock's mom, my mom usually hangs out with us too. It's really good to have you here with us. I was hanging out in a lot of live streams, and I was watching a lot of streamers, and I noticed something that was happening repeatedly. There was a lot of streamers who were really honest, specifically with areas around mental illness, and they would share things oftentimes with what David shared tonight, and they would share their struggles, and there would be people that would rally to them and people who would connect to them. And I noticed that the gaming community was really hurting. There was a lot of people in the community who were searching for hope. And I noticed that one of the things that they often received inside the community was comfort, because they would find people who were going through similar things, but very rarely did I notice that people would find hope or answers. There's something good about being able to find comfort, to find someone that can resonate with you with whatever it is that you're going through. But so often, if that doesn't come with some sort of answers or some type of a solution, it kind of becomes like a drug. You just keep going back for the temporary fix of comfort, but you're not really dealing with any of the things that are actually going on in your life. And I was like, there are people in this world who love this community, who give enormous amounts of their life and their time to these streamers, to this community here on Twitch, who need the hope that I have found through faith in Jesus Christ. That's our one. The person that we're searching for. Our story today opens up with a father who has 2 sons. A father who has 2 sons. He has an older son and a younger son. And at one point, the younger son comes to him and he says, "Father, would you give me half of everything that you're worth?" And then he leaves with that money. Now, it's significant to go back and understand exactly what that means. Give me half of what you're worth. Because we don't really talk like that right now, right? But this biblical writing was meant for us, but it wasn't written to us. So we have to understand a little bit of who it's written to. And so the biblical writer is writing, Jesus here, he's talking to a group of Jewish people. And from generation to generation, wealth was passed down. A father would amass wealth, and he would hand that wealth off to his sons. And then those sons would amass wealth, and they would hand that wealth off to their sons. And if it was shepherded and produced well, that wealth would move from generation to generation through an inheritance. Now, we don't really think about inheritance right now, especially in my country here in the U.S. It's sometimes just as often for a parent to leave debt to their children as it is for them to leave financial resources in the form of an inheritance to them. But in this time, it was very common for the parents to pass down the things that they own and the wealth that they had accumulated throughout their life. But that only happened when the parent died. And so when the son comes to his father and says, give me what you're worth, or my portion of what you're worth, he's coming to him and saying, I'm no longer going to have a relationship with you. I want to treat you as though you are dead. I want you to take your wealth now. And I don't know, it probably wasn't a 50-50 split. He was the younger son, so let's just say it's a 60-40 split. He said, I want an early retirement. Give me 40% of what you're worth now. I want my portion, and I'm going to leave. And so he does. And now this is like a relationship breaking conversation to have. Like a shattering conversation between father and son. And likely the father had to sell off cattle or sell off homes or sell off land. He had to sell off something to liquidate the wealth, because it wasn't like he was just sitting in a stock portfolio or at a bank somewhere. Wealth was accumulated through flocks and herds and property and homes. So he had to liquidate a good portion of what he currently owned, right? Take the financial hit in order to give it to his son, who wishes his father dead. And then his son leaves with the wealth and squanders it in wild living in a foreign land. I don't know if you've ever felt like that. I don't know if you've ever been there. I know that I have. I'm going to tell a little bit of my story of wandering from the Lord tonight. I don't know if you've ever been there where you've wandered from your father, when you've left home, when you had to go experience life the hard way. I've been there. I understand a little bit about it. But he goes away, and after a while, there's a great famine in the land, and he finds himself kneeling down where he's feeding pigs, longing to eat the slop that the pigs are eating. Which is disgusting, by the way. Pigs eat gross stuff. And I don't know if you've ever been there, where you're looking at your life, and you're like, how in the heck did I get here? How did I end up at this place? How did I end up covered in this mud? How did I end up starving? How did I end up so lost? How did I end up so messed up? And you're looking around and you say, like, I've made my bed and there's no one to rescue me from it. Now I have to lay in it. I don't know if you've ever been there before. You just kind of felt like, oh my, like, this is where I am now. Like, this is my lot in life. And the son is sitting there and he feels that way. And there was a time in my life when I felt similar. I was out of high school. I was getting into college. I had gone through a bad ending to a relationship, and I had decisively decided to walk away from my father. Now, most people at least have some sort of a season of rebellion in their story. Some people do, some people don't. A lot of people do. And for me, my season of rebellion isn't that outrageous. I started cussing like a sailor, which has been a habit that's been hard to kick, as I still have a foul mouth sometimes now. Even as, being a pastor for the past, 12 years, sometimes it's still hard for me to tame my tongue. I got a couple of tattoos. I changed my jobs. I moved out of my house. I changed my friend group. I basically changed everything about my life. I had sort of walked away from the Father. I was in college at the time. I was studying youth ministry, but I didn't really believe much about what I was learning. I was sort of distant from God. If there was a decision that I had the chance to make, I pretty much always and exclusively made the wrong decision, just to kind of get a vibe for where I would end up. I was in this really destructive relationship with this girl from Pitt, and I was just on the struggle. I was really struggling. And it kind of all came to a head. Like, my wanting to eat the slop of pigs moment happened on a Tuesday night. I was helping out at this youth group, and I don't know if you've ever had one of those moments where it's just like the realization, like the light bulb goes on for you, but I had that. A week or so before, me and this girl were together, and had decided to take a break, and I was completely devastated. My life sort of revolved around being able to stay inside of a relationship, and that's all that I really wanted from my life. And I was helping out at this youth group, and I was pouring into these middle school boys, but I really wasn't giving them anything of value because I really didn't have anything to give. I was just dry. I was empty. I was a hypocrite. I was telling them to live in a certain way, and I wasn't living anything like that outside of youth group, and I just felt like a hypocrite. I felt like a mess. And I remember on a Tuesday night, youth group was coming to an end, and I had that moment where I was like, is it time to go home? Are you following me? Like, is it time to go home? Like, I looked at the pig trough, I saw the junk that and I had the question. I think we all have to answer this question. It's going to be on the screen. Will we stay and eat with the pigs, or will we come home? Will we stay and eat with the pigs, or will we go home? We're all faced with that decision at some similar part in our lives, and many of us can remember those key decision moments where we decided, like, am I going face down in the pig trough, or is it time to turn around and go home? And that's the situation this young man was in. Let's look at Luke again and continue in the story. It says this: when he came to his senses, this is his son, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and I am here starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. Luke 5:17 through 20a. The first thing the son realizes, there's two things. The first thing is this: his father is a compassionate man. He says to himself, he's looking at the trough that the pigs are eating from. He had hired himself out. Evidently, the food that he was able to get through working as a servant in this foreign land was worse than what the pigs were getting. And he realizes, my father's servants at home oftentimes have food so much that they have leftovers. My father is compassionate with his hired servants. He's compassionate with the men who work with him and who live on his homestead, at his house. So he realizes his first is that his father is compassionate. So he comes up with a plan, and he says, maybe if I return home, I can sort of come up with sort of like a statement. Maybe if I come back and I don't come back as a son, right? Because he didn't feel like he deserved the title of son. He felt like he deserved the title of servant. He didn't deserve the title of son. He deserved the title of servant. He thought, if I go home and I tell my father, can I come back as a servant? Perhaps he will allow me to come back. Why? Because he knew his father was not just compassionate. He knew his father was also merciful. Good night, JT. He knew his father was full of both compassion and mercy. These are the same attributes that are given to God throughout the Bible. So the son leaves the pigs behind and starts the long journey home. But on his way, he prepares his speech. And I can remember returning to God in a similar way. I can remember that Tuesday night I had gotten done serving at youth group. And I walked out of the basement of the parsonage, the building, the house next to the church. And the middle school boys had left for the night. Or maybe they were still downstairs pretending to do WWE wrestling moves on each other. I can't remember. I had a really great group of kids. We had Double Barrel Daryl, we had Crash, Big Willie Styles, and Stifler at the time. Those were kind of like the four boys I was spending a lot of my time with. And they would pretend to do WWE moves on each other and smack each other with chairs in the basement. And I remember walking out of that chaos, and I literally just picked up my phone and I called the girl that we were on a break, and we had spent the whole weekend trying to rekindle this really destructive relationship. And I called her up and I was like, I'm done. I'm just done. And I remember thinking that night, it was the first decision that I had made to be healthy and to return to my father in over like 2 years. It was the first time that I had made that choice to turn around and come home, to turn away from my rebellion. And I didn't know how long the journey would take me home. I got in the car that night and I drove back to my parents' house because I was living at my folks' house at the time in the basement, in my basement bedroom. And I remember driving home and thinking that I was coming home, not just to my physical home, but also in some ways to a spiritual home. In some ways to a spiritual home. But I also remember very distinctly feeling like I didn't know how long the journey would be. I understood that. Let's read this next passage from Luke 15. It says this: but while he, this is the son, was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For the son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. The son sees his childhood home and he prepares his speech. He gets ready. Father, I don't even want to be considered a son. Would you please just embrace me as a servant? Could I come back and could I work for you as one of your hired hands? He doesn't believe that he deserves the title. Let me put this on the screen. God embraces us as a child upon our return, but we insist that the title is unfitting because of our behavior. God embraces us as a child upon our return, but we insist that the title is unfitting because of our behavior. Please don't miss this, guys. This is vitally, vitally important, okay? It's vitally important. While the son was still a ways off, the father saw him and ran to him and threw his arms around him and embraced him not as a servant, but as a son. And the son had prepared his speech because he couldn't accept sonship. He couldn't accept being a child of the Father. He needed to be accepted as a servant because he looked at his own behavior and he looked at the compassion and the mercy of his Father. And he said, I'm not worthy to return to the Father's house as a child. I must return as a servant. And let me tell you that when we wander far from God, oftentimes we've prepared our speech. We want to come home, but we've come home and we said, I don't deserve to be a son or a daughter anymore. It's unfair. But our Father is a Father of mercy and of compassion, and neither mercy nor compassion are fair. And he embraces the son, and the son, even in the embrace, even in the hug, he breaks from the hug and he says, no, listen, you don't understand, Dad. I don't deserve to be. He had his speech ready. He had his speech ready. He had all of the reasons lined up as to why he didn't deserve to be a child, to be a son. He had every reason lined up to why he should just be a servant, a slave. And God says, no, I'm going to embrace you as my child. When I came home that night, I came down to my basement bedroom, and I knew that I had a long journey ahead of me. And I opened up my Bible for the first time to read it in over a year outside of when I was studying it for school. And I literally just crumbled onto the floor. And I just started weeping. Just uncontrollably weeping. I'm reading Psalms 1. As trees that are planted by streams of water. But I wasn't a stream that was planted by streams of water. I was the chaff that it talked about in the later verses of Psalm chapter 1 that was being blown away. I realized that my decisions had led me to that place, and I was suddenly in the presence of the living God. And I couldn't see him, but I didn't need to see him. And can I just be really honest with you? I have never been more scared of anything in my life and had never been more free. When I got up from that floor later, I did not need to fear anything in life because I had experienced the genuine fear of the Lord. Because I knew I was in the presence of the one that with a word could turn me back to dust, and I knew that I deserved it. And for the first time in my life, I knew that I needed to be forgiven. And it wasn't like a controlled, a tear drip from my eye. It was this uncontrollable, on the ground, disgusting, snotty, crying, spit, weeping from my face to the floor. It was this completely unrealistic, over-the-top reaction. I had ended a relationship that I was ready to end. I was happy to be out of that poisonous relationship. I had turned back around. But can I just say this? I didn't have to come the whole way home. I turned around and the Father met me. Can I tell you tonight that you may have wandered far from the Father? And you may feel like if I turned around, it's too long of a journey back. I don't think that I can make the return trip. Can I just say that you don't have to make the return trip, because when the Father sees you from far off, he comes to greet you and throw his arms around you. You only need to turn around. You need only to turn around. And I don't know where you are in your life. I know in that moment, as I felt the fear of the Lord, I also felt overwhelming peace and love. unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was in that moment that I started saying, I know only very few things in life. I am convinced of many. But I know I had experience with a living Father that night. I know that what I experienced that night was real. And when I came in my way face to face with God, he met me where I was. Now, your narrative and your story will likely look different than mine, but if you have been wandering from the Father, if you've squandered his riches and his wealth, if you've checked out and gone your own way, if you're looking at the slop of your life and the places that it's led you, if you're eating from the trough that the pigs are eating from, if you're in that situation and you're starving and you're just afraid to turn around because you don't know what the return trip would be like, can I just tell you that God will meet you where you are? You simply need to turn around. Because God is for the one. He's for you. He loves you. And you can have your speech prepared and you can say, Dad, I'm not worthy to be considered your son or your daughter. I can't get any help. But God doesn't return you as a servant. He returns you as a child. He embraces you and he reinstates you into the very thing that you spat upon, into the very thing that you disgraced, into the very relationship that you threw out. He embraces you and brings you back into it because you are his son or his daughter, and he is overjoyed that you have returned home because the Father loves you. Your heavenly Father loves you. But that's not even where the story ends. The story continues. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him, but he answered his father, Look, all these years I have been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him? My son, the father said, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. Some of us tonight, hey, first off, I see pro cameraman, welcome. Just got here. How long ago did this start? We started at 8:30 pro cameraman, but we're so glad that you're here with us. Thank you for being here. Welcome, my friend. My name is Mark. It's a joy and an honor to have you here tonight. Drop a follow in the chat. You can come back and catch the VOD later. We're closing up. Let me just tell you this. There's many of us who are living at home. We're not the younger brother. We're not the father. We're the older brother. We're living at home, and when the younger brother comes home and he's covered in mud and he's covered in slop and he's poor and he's skinny and he's starving and he's disgraceful, we're insulted when the father welcomes him in. Because let's just get real. The younger son is obsessed with what's fair. He looks at his life and he says, it's unfair for me to be considered a son, so I should be a servant. And the older brother looks at his younger brother and he says, it's unfair. It's unfair. He shouldn't be embraced as a son. He should return as a servant. Can I just be like, he thinks it's unfair. But the point is, the father isn't fair. And we're thankful that he's not. The father isn't fair. He embraces us as his sons and his daughters because he isn't fair. We don't deserve to be counted among God's children. But God counts us among his children anyway. Because we have a compassionate and a merciful father. And sometimes in the church world, guys, what we do is instead of celebrating when our younger brother comes home, instead of celebrating when the mud-caked, poop-caked person comes back to the Father's house, we create situations, cultures, and little cliques to make them feel outcasted because we don't think it's fair for them to be embraced into the community because they don't look quite like us, or they aren't quite clean like we are, or their life hasn't really shaped up the way it should have, or maybe they've made some bad decisions in the past, or they're just too messy, or they come in with too much baggage, or they're just a bit too broken for us. And so we create these cliques inside the church that lets them feel outcasted and lets us feel like we're in the in crowd because we stayed home on the farm with the dad. But that's not the heart of the Father. It's the heart of what's fair. And God calls us to something that's magnificently larger and better than simply what is fair. So if you're here tonight, listen, I don't know who you resonate with. Perhaps you resonate with the Father and you're ready to welcome anybody in. I love that. Thank you. That's our heart. Perhaps you're the heart of the Son, the younger brother. Perhaps you're feeling like I've been eating from the pig's trough and I need to turn around. Can I just give you permission tonight? I'm just going to give you permission. Turn off the stream. Turn off the stream. If you know the Father, but you haven't been home in a long time, turn off the stream. Go get on your hands and knees and go come back to your Father. You don't need to listen to me to do that. But it's got to be with your whole heart. It can't be halfway. It can't be with reservations. You have to turn around from the life that you were leading and you have to come home. And the Father will embrace you. Not when you arrive, but while you are still a long way off. While your life is still messy. Or perhaps you're like the older brother tonight. You're just frustrated. You're frustrated with the younger brother. You've looked and you've said you squandered our wealth. You destroyed our family's name. You've taken everything that our dad had and you've destroyed it. And let me just let you know, guys, like this affects the older brother too. When the younger brother leaves and disgraces the family name, it hurts the older brother. When he takes a portion of what the older brother and younger brother would have gotten, that's wealth that could not be multiplied upon over the years that the brother was gone. So it's wealth that's been lost. The older brother has lost out significantly because of the younger brother's decisions. When one of us as a follower of Jesus goes off reservation, can I be honest with you? It hurts all of us. It's not a victimless crime. It hurts all of us when we wander from the Father. And it's okay that as the older brother, you could be hurt, but are you in a situation where you're just trying to keep the younger brother at arm's length? Are you more interested with what's fair than you are with the heart of the Father? Because at Lux Digital Church, we are committed to having a heart for the one. The heart of the Father. That it doesn't matter how messy you are. It doesn't matter how bad you screwed up. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what you think about the church. I don't really give a rip what you think about the Bible. If you're ready to turn around and come home, we're a place that you can do that. And I hope that each one of us and our ones, like we're a relationship in a place where our one can turn around and come home. And I hope that we won't be obsessed with what's fair, but we will share the heart of our Father, full of compassion and mercy and grace and love for those that have stumbled, for those that have wandered away, for those who have squandered our Father's inheritance. And that brings us to our next step this week. Our next step is this: I will celebrate when the one comes home. I will celebrate when the one comes home. This story is about redemption. It's about second chances. It's about 10th chances. It's about coming home. It's about the one. It's about us. It's about you. And it's about me. It's about knowing that we need to be forgiven. And it's about receiving that forgiveness through the love of our Father. It's about turning around from the pigs and being embraced as a son or a daughter of the Creator. So will you share the heart of the Father for the broken and the bruised and the beaten and the discarded and the muddy? Because let me just tell you, they're here on Twitch right now. Twitch is full of the abused, of the beaten, of the depressed, of the muddy, of those with secret sins in secret lives that they're terrified anyone will find out about. It's full of people who are struggling with depression and anxiety and hurt and PTSD and trauma. Twitch is full of broken, muddy people. Will you make us and help us be a church that welcomes those people home and celebrates their return instead of snubbing our nose at their party and wanting everything to be fair? Will you share the heart of Jesus for the one? Let's pray. Father God, I love you and I thank you, and I thank you for the chance that we have to be here tonight. Lord, we have this amazing opportunity to reach into a community that is full with such a diverse group of people, but so many that are hurt and broken and lost. Would you help us, Father, to be a community that creates a safe haven for the one to come home, a place where they can be embraced, a place where they can be celebrated, even in their dirty clothes, even before they're cleaned up. We'd be able to throw our arms around them and let them know that not just the Father, but also us, we're glad that they're home. In your name we pray. Amen.